Well, hello everyone. It's officially winter, and nothing says winter like egg cartons, twine, and packing material and cardboard and making them into art. So let's get started. Okay, so jumping right into this, I'm applying some texture paste to my canvas, and I decided to go long and vertical on this piece, a 10 inch by 30 inch canvas. And what I wanted to do was have the heavy texture more at the bottom of the canvas. So I drew a pencil line, not directly in the center of the canvas, but kind of off center, and then wanted to have all the rough texture on the bottom and then make the top a little bit lighter with a smoother texture. So I started to apply modeling paste to the top and then kind of smooth out, take some of the excess modeling paste off, but still have that texture there. I didn't want it to be heavy texture on the top of the canvas. So once I had that, then I could start putting all of my materials, my upcycled materials, onto the bottom of the canvas. And I'm using a textile hardener, a Powertex textile hardener, which is the best one that I found for creating art on canvas like this because it just hardens your fabrics really well. I would recommend using gloves with this product because I don't know how good it is for your skin, for one thing, but the other thing is that it will be extremely sticky. So I'm using the egg carton right here. This is just the side of an egg carton, and then I start to apply the other pieces of cardboard and packing material and paper towel roll and just get it into the places that I think it will look best. And then I apply more texture base to the top of it while it's still wet, because the mixture that I use for the texture paste actually has Powertex textile hardener in it, so it's not going to affect it in any way negatively. And then once I had that done, I went in and I said I have some of this leftover twine, so I decided to kind of just add a little bit of interest to where the twine meets the top, and then I actually used some modeling paste to make some raised numbers using a stencil. So now this is dried completely, and I'm taking you in close to see the texture paste that I made and how it has these really beautiful organic cracks, which is a big difference from regular crackle paste, and all the fabric is nice and hard. So I like to have an even surface to paint on color-wise so that everything kind of shows up in the way that I want it to. So I put a layer of gesso, which also adds a little bit of tooth to some of the areas that might be smooth, that just have the textile hardener on it. So I really want to have something that the paint is going to stick to. And then I do the other side as well. Now, it's not always necessary to add gesso to your modeling paste. I just like to, because sometimes modeling paste can be a little bit slippery depending on the brand that you use. So I just add gesso to the whole entire canvas and then, well, let it dry. So as I said before, it's winter officially, and I decided that I wanted to go in with some of the colors that I'm seeing in nature right now around me, which are a lot of muted grays and browns, and kind of make more of that winter mood or moodiness, because I like the moody paintings. And so I decided that I would use some Payne's Gray as my base color, and I'm using an acrylic ink because acrylic inks or high flow acrylics tend to get into all of the little crevices a lot better than if you were to use like a heavy body or a regular acrylic paint, and then just kind of starting to layer some colors. So drying things in between and then adding a little bit of the burnt umber to get some of those rich browns into the composition, and kind of just playing with the paint and letting it go where it wants to go, letting it flow freely, and then doing the edges with a mixture of Payne's Gray and burnt umber, and using a sea sponge in order to do that. I also try and make sure that I get into all of the little cracks and the crevices so that there isn't any white showing. And then we get to my favorite paint applicator, which is the Humble Sea Sponge. Yes, I used this throughout this entire painting process because it doesn't cover everything up. You get this great mottled effect, and using all of those kind of muted colors, but I can see all of the layers when I use the sea sponge versus using a brush. I like the dabbing, and it's actually kind of a meditative process. There's something about it where you can get really wrapped up in what you're doing and the whole world falls away. So this is an awesome gilding paint. It looks just like using gold leaf. It's Kamenskaya, I believe, and it's amazing. The gold really went well with these colors and gave just that shine, that little bit of shine to it. And boy, I absolutely love how the bottom of this painting came out, and it really didn't take that long. You know, once all of that gesso had dried, you can kind of just play back and forth with those colors, and it does not take long. So for the top of the canvas, I did want to have a somewhat different appearance. I wanted it to obviously be smoother and not have that rough texture, because it created more of a separation between the bottom and the top of the painting. So once again, though, I'm still going to be working with a very similar color palette, and I wanted to have a slightly different appearance to the top of the painting. So I was using the acrylic inks, and a lot of this is very intuitive, where you play with your paint until you see the effect that you like. And I really liked how that created this really great wash on the top of the canvas with the Payne's gray. And so I then squeegeed on some of the burnt umber and then a little bit of light blue, and just see how these colors would play off of each other. The blue gets muted down by the burnt umber that's underneath it, and because the burnt umber was still a little bit wet, it did really mute that down, but gave it a great appearance. I was really enjoying the interplay between the color layering and seeing what I could come up with by just continuing to layer different colors on top of it. And when using the rubber brayer or the squeegee, I could then go in with a sea sponge and soften certain areas and make them a little cloudier, and just go back and forth until I got where I wanted to be. I wanted to create a little bit of a vignette kind of around the top of the canvas, and so I did the same thing with the burnt umber and a little bit of Payne's gray, and then once again brighten this top area up quite a bit, so it creates even more of this separation between the top of the canvas and the bottom with all that heavy texture. But I definitely wanted to have more of a defining line of the twine that goes between the top and the bottom, so I decided to go in and paint that black. And then I went in and painted the numbers black, which I originally wanted to have them be a little bit lighter, and then I was like, I don't think they're gonna look good if they're surrounded by a light color. So once again, always painting my edges while I go about doing things. So okay, once I had the whole entire backdrop painted, I of course love my corvids, and I decided to paint a crow into this because, well, they're everywhere right now. Everywhere you look around, in the yard, in the trees, they're cawing, they're all over the place, and I absolutely love them. They're very intelligent birds, and I didn't want it to be overly detailed because that really would kind of detract from the rest of the painting being a little bit rougher and having that rough texture. So I wanted to give more of the impression of the crow without putting too much detail into it. But anyway, this is the finished painting, and I do have a full-length real-time technique tutorial that's on my Patreon page. If you're interested in that, head over there. And in the meantime, happy holidays. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.